What's up, everyone? Time for Massie's video.
Every night in my dreams, I see the old truck series with Hornaday and Skinner, Bodine. Now it's just a wreck fest, no spaces between cautions. No one there can hold a straight line. Near, far, wherever they are, I believe they will wreck everyone. Once more, they're slamming doors. They don't care about the shop guys, the hard work by everyone. Do 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 do. My fear gets worse every year, and I know that the wreck fest will go on. Please don't stay forever this way. Be the trucks of my young heart. Don't let the air shows go on and on.
So clearly, Massie was saying the truck series is a Titanic and the way it's sinking currently, as a little Celine Dion parody to kick off this episode of the Happy Hour podcast. Hello, everyone.
Is that what that was?
I think so. We're about to introduce
Okay.
the grumpy old man, as he likes to call himself. Mr. Michael Neff is our special guest this week.
How you doing?
As well as Mr. Michael Massie. We're keeping up the mics. We got Tom Bowles as well, the old man episode, and one of the old men is running late, and that is Tom Bowles. Thank you to everyone tuning in live. As always, make sure if you're on YouTube, like this. If you're on Facebook, like this. Leave us a comment throughout the episode, and there he is right there. Boss man running late. Some guy they found on the street and named CEO. Well, he named himself CEO, folks. So that's how this all turned out. When you found the place, you can do whatever you want. That is Tom Bowles, who just jumped right in. My name is Trey Lyle. I am one half your host. Other half is, of course, singer, songwriter, and recording artist Michael Massie. Gentlemen, how are we doing? It's good to see. Green, got a lot of green on, it looks like, between on the mics, and then it's a fun time. Now, Massie, we'll go with you first. How you doing?
I'm doing good. What does that say? I would like to apologize to anyone I have not yet offended. Please be patient. I will get to you shortly. Oh my gosh. Yeah,
we're not responsible here at Fun Stretch for anything Mike Neff says. All right, there we go.
Yeah.
Got the
There you go. The opinions expressed are solely those of Mike Neff and do not reflect Front Stretch, Trey Lyle, Michael Massie, the Boss Man, or anybody else involved in this production.
Well, if
you have any complaints, please contact at the Brian Nolan on Twitter. At the Brian Nolan on Twitter. Boss Man running late yet again. I see Yoda, so we're staying wise.
I'm all ears.
I get you. Nice. I'm wearing a nice, maroon and orange sweatshirt after that ass kicking that Virginia took last night in basketball.
You're blending right into the background, Trey.
My tan walls.
Yes, exactly. So you're blending in right into the Front Stretch background, the red background.
Tom looks like he's in the Twilight Zone.
A couple of things. Number one, I was a last minute replacement. People always tell me, oh, you want to cover the Daytona 500? Our day yesterday was a 20-hour day. 20 hours. Like, we got up at 6:15. I got to the hotel, finished the Xfinity race at 2:15 a.m. And so you get up, then you have two flights. I landed. You want to cover the Daytona 500? It is fun, but it is a long ass day. It's a long ass weekend. I'm really excited to be home. I'm really excited to just be able to get a really good night's sleep.
Well, we're gonna
smallest violin playing the world's saddest song for you, Mr. Bowles.
Well, we'll get all into that this episode here, as we're going to talk a lot about the Daytona 500 and William Byron's victory there. As always, our guest goes first. Also, during this episode, we will update you on the fantasy draft from last weekend. We have a shocked person in first place, but we think it won't last that long because the person didn't understand the rules of the game, which we'll talk about at the end. Mr.
Which
Mr.
is like
Neff,
the lady that wins the March Madness thing by pitching the
mascots.
mascot she most like as a pet.
Yeah, well, we'll talk about said person not knowing the rules towards the end. But Mr. Neff, you as our guest, our esteemed, talented guest, we'll let you go first.
All right, so my analysis / view of the entire weekend at Daytona was pretty much, and it's not necessarily just Daytona, it's super speedways in general, which unfortunately they're bound and determined to force feed us Atlanta as a super speedway. But you're in these scenarios where they've got these cars choked down. You're on the mat the entire race. It's just a matter of you don't have equipment difference. Everybody is basically driving the same thing. And so when you make your moves on a restart when you can, but after that, it's a parade. And you're not able to make moves, or you're really stuck trying to make passes unless you've got two guys pounding your back bumper in. And as you get to later in the race, guys are pounding harder, which leads to the big wrecks. But what it all boils down to is everybody's got a shot. And as much as Americans love it, they love to see the little guy or the underdog come out on top. And that's why it was great seeing Ryan Sieg, until the very last, having a shot at winning that Xfinity race. You saw Corey LaJoy, whether he's Austin Cindric's best friend or not, comes home fourth in the Daytona race. You had guys, we saw Michael McDowell win the thing a couple years ago, which now
Stenhouse winning last year.
Much different because Michael McDowell has got a lot more support out of Ford because of what they did last year. You had Ricky Stenhouse. Let's face it, JTG's not a powerhouse, but he was in the right place at the right time, and he gets it. The only person that I thought out of this whole weekend that really had any kind of grumble is Bowman, because I think he got screwed. Nobody's talking about it, but if you watched on the replay, when they show the in-car camera right after the race ended, they show Bowman's car. It goes past the start-finish line, and William Byron disappears out of the shot. And all of a sudden, then you see the caution light come on.
Mike,
he was nowhere.
Just another topic, Mike Neff.
NASCAR turns around and drops in this BS picture from some blimp that was hovering over the ocean and tries to say that that's where they made the lineup from.
Hey, Mike, you're jumping you're jumping topics.
I'm sorry. That's where I was coming at. But
we'll get to that. I will pull the photo up later on in this episode.
You get every opportunity for anybody to win this race, and the only guy that really had the opportunity to win it that got screwed was Bowman.
So the topic, just to sum up what
come all the way around,
said, which he's living up to his T-shirt. The great super speedway racing has become, instead, I think instead of a skill, in the, I think, obviously like juniors run a Talladega. A really good example of great skill is, what we see in the Xfinity Series with Austin Hill. The fact he's won 3 straight Daytona races, the February Daytona races, and he's basically the clear favorite anytime they're at, super speedways or these types of tracks. Like, he has that skill. Like, it was the same skill Earnhardt had, both Earnhardts had. It's kind of why, the skill that before this car, like, why Denny was called the best of the best. And Brad, you throw Brad in there as well. There's a group, like, the skill to me, and I is like the skill of it has gotten diminished a lot with this package, in terms of it is a lot of 2x2, and it's all, the idea of the race is we do not care about the first, third, 3/4 of it, or whatever, how many pits,
497 laps.
whatever, pit stops you're going to take. Let's say you take 4 pit stops in the race. The first 3 pit stops do not matter. They're there to set you up for the 4th pit stop, which is you're trying to spend the least amount of time on pit road, just to gas and go, get back on the track and get going, and then you position yourself wherever you may be. But it's a lot of 2x2, half throttle. I mean, at one point in the race last night, which is crazy to me, it was AJ Allmendinger in the Cup race was running faster than the pack because they were saving gas that slow, and you saw the frustration on drivers. Like,
he was by himself, by the way.
Yeah, he was by himself. Like, I know Bubba Wallace and Denny, both were kind of, who are, probably skill wise up at the top end, were both complaining the whole time, like wanting to race. And the problem is you can't go solo with it. So it's something that. Go ahead, Tom.
That was the fuel saving, right? Like, I almost feel like that's like a separate topic within a topic, right? Because that's a product.
Well, we're talking about the fact it's so equal. I think a part of the reason of this, equalization in the super speedways to a very extreme degree. We're going to talk about, underdog wins and with Massie's topic as well. Like, these are all kind of tying together, but the fuel saving aspect of it is a big reason why we have so much equalization in the racing.
And you have guys saving fuel that are going as fast as dudes that are on the mat. That's the part that's jacked up. You get a guy that's 3 cars back, and he's riding around with his hand on the side of the car at freaking half throttle, and he's running the same speed as the guy in front of him that's breaking the wind. I mean, you have to be able to differentiate yourself by putting a foot on the mat.
Yeah, I will say I do think that they're going to make a rule change after what we saw at the 500, because the fans couldn't really tell the difference. But I talked to Eric Jones after. He was deflated. The dude had a top 10 finish, and he was deflated. And he was like, look, I was running around at half throttle for like half the race. Like, this is something that needs to be addressed, because they're basically, to your point, Trey, I do agree with that. They're basically running around and going, you know what? We're all going to crash anyways in the last 10 laps. Let's run around, save fuel, go half throttle. Maybe we can pull away based on fuel mileage, or if it's fuel mileage race at the end, we have like a little bit of a leg up. And then in the last 10 laps, or once they get clear of the final pit stop, they race for it, and they race hard for it. And then, unfortunately, in each of these races, the Xfinity race and the Cup race, truck race was a disaster the whole time. But Xfinity and the Cup race, end of the race, there were these big wrecks that just basically determined the winner. So I think that they will make a rule change on the fuel saving. But the super speedway thing is a very difficult thing to solve, because to Neff's point, it does give underdogs an opportunity to get in the mix, to get away with a win. I don't want to jump to Massie's topic, but I will say I don't think this was the best year for underdogs. You had a good finish for Jordan Anderson's team in Xfinity. You had some opportunities on the Cup side, but at the end of the day, you look at the winners, Austin Hill, William Byron, even Nick Sanchez. I wouldn't say any of those are underdog winners. But while the super speedway was a great equalizer, I don't think that it was the equalizer in giving certain people more opportunities than others.
My one question is, what do you think would happen if we get rid of the stage break cautions? If you take away that guaranteed pit stop, is it going to split it up more, where you have more strategies come in and people deciding to pit at different scheduled times and maybe try and run harder to make one less pit stop? Because back in the day, when we saw Junior and Michael Waltrip do it, they did it at Talladega, where they did one shorter pit stop than everybody else, and it basically smoked them.
Yeah, I was thinking that, or like, this would only make sense for the 500, but the Coke 600 has an extra stage. So, like, what if, you just say all crown jewel events to make them, how like the Indy 500 in IndyCar is double points? Like, what if you add an extra stage so that, like, stage 1 and stage 4 are not, like, are either just are one fuel run, like they're 40 laps or whatever. So you can't pit in the stage. So instead, you're racing the entire stage. That was the other solution I thought of.
I mean, I think the solution is you take the tapered spacers off of them and let them
There you
go
go.
wide open around there.
Run on
And
salad like the good old days, man.
then you'll find out.
Like they're on the beach.
248 miles an hour.
Then you'll
Let them
find out.
run on salad
who-
like they're at the beach.
Can I talk on my own show? All
No.
right. Then you'll find out who is really a man out there or not, who's actually a good driver willing to put it on the edge. And then you'd have, if you want to save fuel and slow down, well, somebody's going to pass you going 250 miles per hour and you'll get lapped in no time. I think it's time. I think the cars are safer now than they were back when restrictor plates were needed. I think it would actually be safer to be unrestricted than to be restricted, because right now everybody's clumped up, and like that's how you get somebody killed. Everybody clumped up on top of each other. They'll spread out if they're unrestricted. So that's one way. And then on top of what Tom was saying, I do think there's the illusion of equality out there. Like the Daytona 500 yesterday. Who were the guys that were really players in it? It was Kyle Busch, Joey Logano,
Denny Hamlin,
Ross Chastain. I'm trying. There's another one that was up there a whole bunch.
Hendrick
But anyways,
had a good first stage.
Christopher Bell. You say Christopher Bell?
Christopher Bell. All those guys are with major teams. There was no underdog up there that really had a shot at winning the thing. It's like
Corey LaJoie is up front for a bunch of the race. I mean, maybe not leading, but he was top 6 or 7 for a bunch of the race.
Well, honestly, is Corey even with that bad of a team now? Though I feel like they're a lot better than they were.
A lot of money.
Yeah,
It's still
Allegedly.
yeah, it's true. But
Corey was not going to have a shot at that race if they didn't have that wreck with 8 laps to go, because he was out of the lead draft, right? Like, I feel like Spire had problems on that final pit stop. I don't think they were in the lead draft, if I remember correctly.
Yeah, I that does sound right. So yeah, I think the chaos played into an underdog in Hendrick Motorsports winning, but still, it's the illusion of the small teams having a chance. You didn't
It was
see
on
Rick
the day of
Ware.
their first race, their 40th anniversary.
Yeah.
Should we get, we're about to talk. We're going to talk about the ending in a moment, but maybe everyone put your tinfoil hats on when we do that. I'll just say that as well.
No, stop it.
Let's move on. We're talking about underdogs and overdogs. What do you want to the opposite? The favorites. Massie wanted to touch on that. We're kind of going pretty in depth with this Daytona weekend, which it is the Daytona 500. It's the biggest race of the year. We should go as in depth as possible with it. Go ahead, Massie.
Well, I'm thinking, is it better for NASCAR when an underdog like a Michael McDowell, a Cindric, Stenhouse wins the 500, Trevor Bayne, or is it better for them when one of the stars like a William Byron wins it, or Denny Hamlin, or someone like that? And because I'm kind of torn on it. Like, it's cool to hear cool underdogs like the Trevor Bayne thing. I feel like that's one of those things that got outside of NASCAR's bubble. But I also feel like Jeff Gordon back in the day winning it is one of those things that also got outside of NASCAR's bubble and really helped make him the star he was. So I don't know. What do you think it's better to have an underdog winner or one of the superstars win?
I look at it in the same vein, and I know I've gone back to March Madness again, but if you listen to any of the pundits that are hardcore college basketball guys, they love the story of the underdog for the first week. But when you're going down to Final 8, Final 4, they don't give a crap about East, Western, Kentucky, Northern State. They want to see Duke. They want to see Kentucky. They want to see North Carolina. They don't want to see, Maryland, whatever, getting out there.
Peters.
Yeah. I mean, it's a matter of you want your blue bloods to be the ones that are out there for that race. Now, it's different. We go to Rockingham ever again. We go to North Wilkesboro, something like that. Then it's a different story. But your flagship races, I think NASCAR wants to see the best of the best, the long line history type teams winning those races.
Yeah, I mean, go back to the 2022 Final Four when it was Duke, North Carolina, Kansas, Villanova, which was blue blood, and you know, Carolina went on kind of a Cinderella run because they were the 8th seed. You had Coach K's like that. I think that's a really good. I think it's a case by case scenario. I was gonna joke if Stenhouse was still dating Danica, then maybe it'd be bigger, but I don't. But I think Trevor Bain's a really good example of that, but that also was, you know, go back to our topic last week. I think part of the reason Trevor Bain was one, it was a historic team. It was the Wood brothers. So it was an underdog win, but it was with a team that everyone knows. But two, his name was getting built throughout the week. And that kind of gets lost, you know, without the speed weeks. Like I touched on it last week. Like Jeff Gordon early in the week saying, I want to work with Trevor Bain, built kind of this Trevor Bain aura as the week went on. But obviously, like, to me, the most memorable Daytona 500 for me personally was the one 10 years ago when Dale Earnhardt Jr. won, and he's the biggest star in the sport. And I thought to myself yesterday, if I could rank the top 5 like biggest impact winners, like number 1 to me is Bubba, because I think that would get the most crossover appeal is Bubba Wallace. 2 would be, I think, Chase. 3 would be maybe Kyle Busch. 4 would be Denny. And 5 would be the rest of the Hendrick drivers. So I would throw in William Byron, who, you know, is sponsored by, you know, Liberty University, and they have a really big following, and they follow William, and he's in an iconic car. He's in the 24. So I think if you want the mass appeal, it's a case-by-case scenario, because I don't think you would say Bubba Wallace is an underdog pick, but he's not with the elite team. So that could be that would be, in my opinion, the number 1 choice, because like when he won at Talladega, like LeBron James and Lewis Hamilton were shouting him out, like congratulating him. No offense to William Byron, I don't think that happened. But if maybe if an RFK car wins, since he has technically an ownership stake in it, put air quotes around that because it's just, you know, through the Fenway Motorsports Group or the Fenway Group, like he might, you know, congratulate them like he did with the paint schemes this fall. So like it's a case by case scenario, I think.
Well, and I agree with the list that you made, Trey. I think that's a great list. But two things. Number 1, Stenhouse was a feel-good story within racing where everybody was like, oh, it's so great that Stenhouse actually got this victory. Did not move the needle for NASCAR outside of racing circles at all. It was an underdog that was a feel-good story for people that loved racing, didn't bring any new fans into the sport. I would argue that. You know, I think for Byron, we'll see what happens. I do think that everyone's selling him a little short. Jeff Gordon was really adamant last night in his press conference. He's like, this elevates William. This is going to make him a superstar. People haven't realized who he is, what he's about, how personable he is. And look, everybody's got this first impression of William. I'm not saying he's Chase Elliott. I'm not saying, you know, he's a Bubba. William actually referred to himself as the other guy within Hendrick. And he talked about how that motivates him because he's not as popular as Chase and he's not as successful as Kyle Larson. But I do think he's starting to really show a little bit more personality, and this is going to give him an opportunity to show it on a national stage. And, you know, we're going to see how it plays out. I mean, I don't think it's going to move the needle and bring like millions of people all of a sudden, but I think that William is growing in terms of being media friendly, media savvy, showcasing his personality, you know, and I think that he is, as he evolved on the racetrack, he's evolving off it. And I do think his Daytona 500 win comes at the right time, where it might move the needle just a little bit. And we could say, oh, well, you know, this superstar really did give us like a little foundation to build on in 2024. We'll see.
I also think it's a bit of a validation because Byron was your momentum driver going into the finals last year. I mean, he was the dominant driver of the sport as the season was winding down, didn't close the deal. Now you turn around and he comes right out of the gate firing again. If anything, this might be one of those moments where, and I saw one of my chats today said 2013 is the last time somebody won a 500 and a championship in the same year. that could be the kind of statement that this makes. Byron wins the 500, follows it up with a championship, truly establishes himself through his accomplishments as a superstar in the sport.
I do think this win does more for his platform than making the championship 4.
Oh, I agree with that.
I agree.
Yeah. It's just more talked about. You go do media stuff up in, I think you went to New York today.
Yep.
So doing those shows and all that. Whereas you make the championship 4, what do? You just do a media day for NASCAR. It's like
he was too elite to join us, so we picked Mike Neff instead.
Yeah,
exactly. We're too elite for him. That's why we got.
Should have worked on his PR girl. I almost got Fugel on my radio show today.
The mayor of the Redneck Riviera, Mike Neff.
There you go.
That's who we picked.
Byron chose today's show over us. I don't know why, but I think this does a lot for his platform. But another point, I remember talking to my brother-in-law. Used to be a pro golfer, trying to make it on the tour for a while, and I remember asking him, was it better for golf when Tiger Woods was dominating, or now that there's more like parity, more different winners popping up and stuff? And he's like, Tiger Woods winning, but by far.
But that's kind of a unique example.
It is, but like having that one guy just dominate seems to do more for a sport.
But the opposite of that is like, look at UConn women's basketball and their dominance, and now it's slowed, and now you have this kind of great parity in women's basketball, and you see this boom of women's basketball, especially in the college ranks. So it depends on the sport, but I would agree most times seeing the dominant team fall is, look at the Chiefs. We're the dominant team. They're the dominant team in the NFL, and we just had the most watched Super Bowl. But but Tiger is literally like a top 3 in most impactful athlete in the history of sports. Like, that's how big Tiger is.
Yep.
It's the reason I have golf clubs, just because of Tiger Woods.
So, yeah, I think as we go forward, obviously there are a lot of other people that feel like, hey, William is not somebody that would be my top pick in terms of like a popular win per se. But like, I think it's something that's marketable. And to Neff's point, he had the momentum at the end of last season. And going forward here, I think there's a little bit, not pressure on him, but like, can he start putting together, sustained success to back up this 500 win? That's why Stenhouse didn't move the needle, because everybody knew Stenhouse was just going to disappear, similar to Trevor Bayne all those years ago. He wasn't able to sustain that success. Like, can William Byron come out and win like 5 out of 6 races to start the season or something crazy where people are really interested in it? And can he just blend that in with a little bit of his personality? He's a huge hockey guy, loves the Hurricanes. He's basically like flying back to watch all the playoff games last year. Like, he's got a lot of side interests. He's got an interesting story. He's dating Ryan Blaney's sister. That itself is interesting, a little bit TMZ-ish. But, I think there's things there that, like, I feel like people sell themselves short on. Now, the thing with Jimmy Johnson and why he never really broke through, in my opinion, the way he could break through is Jimmy was always politically correct. I think with William, he's just kind of innocent, right? He even said yesterday, I went from playing computers to winning the Daytona 500. He's like, I can't believe at 14, I was basically doing this on iRacing. Now here I am 12 years later. He used to go trick-or-treating at Jimmy Johnson's house. Like, that came up in post-race. And I had heard that story before as a kid. He loved Jimmy Johnson. He had Jimmy Johnson diecast, and now he's running for the same team that Jimmy Johnson won 7 championships with. So I do think that, like, there's cool backstory here, but it's like, what are people going to focus on? And why people like Gregson, why people like Ross Chastain, they're really aggressive on the track. They're really like, they got this swagger about them. Johnson was a little bit more innocent. Byron's very innocent. And I think that it's going to be interesting. What do fans want, right? Like San Antonio Spurs, the NBA, were one of the most successful champions, but never one of the most popular, because there were a lot of goody two-shoes on that team and people didn't want to go for it.
So you're saying Jimmy Johnson is the Britney Spears of NASCAR because he's not so innocent?
Maybe.
Hey, but tell me,
Deep cut, Larry. for everyone out there.
Massie should have had the song ready to play when you threw that on.
Right.
Yeah, that's the song next week. All right, we gotta move to our next topic.
Tell me you
Go
come
ahead,
from
Matt.
money though, without telling me you come from money. You trick or treated in Jimmy Johnson's neighborhood.
Yeah, here we go. All right, so moving on to our next topic, the finish. And Tom, I'm gonna let you present the ending, and I'm gonna pull up the said photo that Mr. Neff referenced, just as
From the supposed blimp helicopter or whatever
that NASCAR said. So go ahead.
So, look, I think I'm going to sound like an NASCAR stooge here, but I really do believe it. That Chastain spins. And you knew when Chastain spins and he makes that move and then he starts wrecking, they're going to throw the caution flag. They were way too close to the white flag lap in order for them to, go back and do another overtime. NASCAR's rule is they go to the moment of caution to determine who's ahead. So it's where the caution flag flies and when that light comes on. And, there's a great photo that Racer Magazine had on their tweet. I actually am using it for DYN tomorrow, shameless plug for us, in terms of showing where they were at the moment of caution. It was very close, very, very close. But William Byron was just barely ahead. Now there is this video that is circulating on Twitter that shows Bowman pulling ahead, but you don't see the caution light initially in that video. You just see him start to surge ahead, and you don't really know where the caution light came on because there's not a caution light every single one of those poles. It's just every 12 poles or 15 poles, however many it is. And at the moment of caution, Byron was ahead. I think the sucky part about this is it's you're darned if you do, darned if you don't. If you do have this rule, which you freeze on the white flag lap, you finish the race under caution, it's subjective, right? It's when they decide, all right, the wreck is there, and 1 second later, and Alex Bowman is your Daytona 500 champion. That's how close it is. The guy hits the button 1.5 seconds later. It's like an official throwing a flag, and people really don't like that. And you're going to have that happen once in a blue moon. But if we go the other way and say we have to finish every race under green no matter what, how many more overtimes would we have had in this situation? Would we have had 1, 2, 3? Desperation of the Daytona 500. How many times has the 500 gone to overtime in the last 10, 12 years? It's been quite a bit. So it was a really tough break for Bowman, but he was really gracious in defeat. And there was no challenge here. It wasn't like Alex was like, no, I really won the race. I just think, fans are annoyed about the rule, and look, I mean, this is going to happen. We saw it at the Indy 500, I think 20 years ago with Paul Tracy. If you have this moment of caution rule, it throws it in the hands of the official and it doesn't throw it in the hands of the drivers. And it's the sacrifice you have to make.
And part of that.
Okay, first of all, Bowman is not Lee Petty. So Bowman is not going to protest his son's car that won a race so that he could have the win. That's just not going to happen. He's not. If it's not Byron, Bowman is throwing a hissy fit like the biggest baby you've ever seen. And I wish Mr. Trey, with his amazing talent of grabbing these screens, could get the in-car camera that they showed right after the checker flag of Alex Bowman. And you see him, green flag as he's coming under the stand. He's behind Byron. He pulls past Byron. Byron is nowhere in the shot, and the caution comes out.
I might
see the light come on. So
I'll say I looked at that video you're talking about. If you look at it closely, so you see the light up ahead. It's green. It's green. It turns off, and Byron's still in the lead. When it cuts back on is yellow, Bowman's in the lead. So what's the rule? Is it when the green quits flashing, or is it when the yellow starts flashing? I don't know.
I thought it was when you see a yellow light. And when you see a yellow light, Byron's nowhere in the shot.
All right. Give me 1 second.
I will say
the guy deleted the video, so I can't.
There you go. I'm glad they let it.
I'm going to present something that I put in my DYN. Let me see if I can find it.
Well, while you look for that,
can I add more context before we keep going?
What? Yeah.
NASCAR stated that another reason why they didn't throw the caution as early as they did was they thought kind of both Chastain and Cindric would do what Chastain did and just kind of keep going down the front stretch near the pit wall.
Yeah.
and they would have kept green. So I'm fine with their caution call because they were trying.
Yeah, I agree.
It was too close to the finish line to kind of be like, they didn't make it. Like do the riot. Like it would have been the.
It's too gimmicky.
So,
if they
yeah,
hit that point right away,
they were past the line before the caution came out. There was no question about that.
The question is, was Bowman ahead? And I said I would put my tinfoil hat on. I believe Alex Bowman is in a contract here at Hendrick Motorsports. And would it be a bad look for Hendrick Motorsports if Alex Bowman is crying foul and he's like, hey, I'll just do a solid for, maybe the company's lead guy right now, or one of the company's lead guy right now, and be like, I'm a good teammate. Hey, look, I'm not upset. Look, I helped get the 1-2 in our 40th anniversary. I'm just saying.
Well, that's definitely a true conspiracy theory because he signed through 2026 and a 3-year extension last year. So, next time, Trey.
I don't know. I was just saying, I'm trying to just have some fun here.
Contracts don't mean anything in sports. So if they wanted to get rid of him, they got rid of Casey Kane when he still had a contract. So.
There you go.
But my argument
would
be Bowman winning this race would guarantee he comes back for next year. He's in the playoffs. Whereas now he's going to have to fight to make the playoffs. He might not.
The photo you shared was the photo I messed up the other day. The checkered flag is being waved. So
yeah, they were past the start finish line.
No, this was when they went around again and they waved the checkered flag with the yellow. Like
so it's the checkered flag with the yellow.
And that was just
you can see it.
Photo op, They just pull up alongside each other for the Hendrick photo op.
Yeah, because Bowman wanted to give him a little door bump to congratulate him.
Yeah.
Because he's a nice guy.
Okay, Tom.
Kind of like Sheldon.
Are you sure about that? Here, I'm going to present it.
You shouldn't. Did you notice the checkered flag in the shot? I finally got.
Yeah, it's like front and center on the right half of the screen.
Look at this. I'm improving. I got the column right this week. How about that? Woo!
No, look at that. Look here. I'm going to.
I will share that. I will share it right now. Look.
I just want to show you. It's a yellow flag. It's the start finish line is in it. Oh yeah.
See that thing where it says "Son no go"?
All right.
Wow.
We got Caleb, who is my podcast, like my helper on my podcast. Caleb, write this moment down as our clip for the week. Just passing that on.
Don't hire Tom. If you get charged for something like murder or something, don't hire Tom Bowles. This is your lawyer.
What? He'll make up evidence, or he'll present something and he'll look like, hey, look.
That's all I had. Sorry, you're on your own now.
Are you happy now?
But at the end of the day,
I want the picture of Bowman in car.
I don't have that. Well, I have.
I know you don't. Does Fox have that on their site anyway?
Fine.
We could find it.
So
but...
I still look at that video, which was up, but you're right, it's now been deleted. I still look at that video and I go, the light is off, to Massie's point, and Byron is so ahead. It makes me believe that the moment of caution did happen while Byron was still ahead. I mean, but it's very, very close. And again, it's all subjective. If it was a second earlier, we wouldn't even be talking about it. If a second later, Bowman would have won. And they could have thrown that caution at any time. The second Chastain turned sideways, they could have thrown it. And they waited a couple seconds. So, I mean, that's the problem with the rule. So, I mean, again, you have two choices. You can either go back and say, unlimited overtimes, we have to finish every race under green flag conditions no matter what. We're not going back, as much as I love the 90s. We're not going back to it's going to finish under green no matter what. You got to dodge wreck cars at 200 miles an hour. We're not going to have that. I know people ask about that. It's not happening. So you have the two choices. Either you finish every race on green or penalties come up. They're going to come up.
I found the video. It is courtesy of our own Daniel McFadden.
There you go.
Here we go. Mike Neff, this is for you.
Thanks, buddy.
The Hendrick does come up a little there.
And boom. There is no guy.
Down.
So now we got to pause it.
All right. So look, if we go back here, look, that's when the light, Back
Look.
up a second.
See, you can't really tell whose head right there.
Do you see? Show me Byron's car. There's Byron's
Right
car.
there.
There's Byron. There it is.
Byron's
Right
Lights
head.
there.
off. And the
Byron's
lights off.
head right there. And the lights off completely. It's not even green.
On. This is great television or video podcasting.
Right.
Yeah, now I
Yeah,
think the
you
light's
listen,
yellow
you
in
can
front.
do it.
I think the light is yellow in front.
No, it's green because then
No.
it gets turned off.
Just watch.
Yeah, it's off for a bit. It's off while
Right.
Byron's
Keep
still
going.
ahead.
No, keep going. Keep going.
And then it's yellow right there, and he's ahead.
No, it ain't. Keep going.
There.
There it is.
But it's off when he. So it's the question
It
is.
is close.
No, it's not close. There is
It
no
is
Byron
close.
car in that shot.
Right.
And it
The
is still
question
green.
is the rule when the light's off or when it's yellow?
Is
Yeah,
when it
that's what I was asking.
turns yellow. When you
Why not?
see the yellow light.
Well, look in the upper right there, where it says where. Look at that yellow where the fox is.
But there's also the fact that do all the lights cut on at the same time, or does the one at the flag stand light up and then all the others?
They all
That's-
come on.
Oh,
at
it's
the same
just.
time. And the
Oh,
one where
it's just
Fox
part of the
is
Fox
like
thing. Okay.
permanently on.
I think that's the person recording the screen. It's just a
Got it.
glare from the
Okay.
light. So look, it's on. I think
Green,
that's the
green,
light.
green. Off.
And now it's off.
There.
And Byron is ahead. So I think
Right.
the rule is
So we're
Byron's
still
ahead.
green. Still green.
You and our mysteriously located Dalton Hopkins would be like in sync right now
Yeah.
because he believes Alex Bowen won the Daytona 500.
I
like
think he
you.
got screwed. I really do.
I think it's a tie. And tie goes to the Byron.
Tie goes to the
The 24.
lower number.
Yeah. All right. New conspiracy handle. You know, there was a pause before he said, "Can we get the winner of the 24?" What if they did think it was a tie, and NASCAR just calls up Mr. H and is like, who would you rather see?
Well, I also look
But
at it
they
like
called
this.
Mr. H.
Byron.
Mr. H's line was busy, so they called Jeff and said, "Which number do you want?"
24.
Jeff says, "Oh, I don't know, 24."
Look, the race was over when Chastain messed up that move and went around, right? And
Yeah.
who was in the lead when that happened? That was Byron. So
Yes.
you could say the second that Chastain screwed that up, the race was over and Byron was ahead. And maybe that, of course, Bowman tried to make a move after that
Feel
because
free
that
to
slowed
have
the
that
24.
explained to
But
Mark Martin.
We did our best.
The bottom line is it doesn't matter what the rule book says or anything.
Yeah,
There's
bottom line
that,
is William
that
Byron
in-
has a trophy and y'all can suck it.
Yeah.
Yeah. At the end of the day,
also,
I think. Go ahead,
it
man.
says in rare instances. The rule book says something like in case of rare instances or something like that. That basically says NASCAR can do whatever they want. So it doesn't matter what happened at the end there.
Yeah. So I think NASCAR actually by getting the one thing that NASCAR and you could throw Fox in messed up on this was not getting that photo out sooner because there was for the longest that was the only I think they made every call they could have to the best of their abilities, if that makes sense. Because it honestly looked like the cameras were just following the wreck. They might have not the closer cameras were following the wreck. And those in cars, you can't get a full perspective on, the car if the car is 3 inches ahead of you, because perspective is, a crazy thing in life. They should have got that photo out within 10 minutes out that race. At least. It should have been on that Fox broadcast before it went out. But it wasn't. And I get they were in a tight time cram, but it could have been as simple as when a lot of fans probably flipped FS1 to watch the Xfinity race, and they were like, "Hello, folks. This is what happened in the Cup race. This is why the ruling happened. Boom. Here's the photo we used." Even if you don't they should have covered their ass a little bit better. Is the best way to put it. And I feel like that's where NASCAR failed because there was this, 30 to 40 minute, and the Pitch Straight host Jack Swansea did an Abu Dhabi 2021 joke with it, and I chuckled at that, but it was kind of that feeling of what the blank just happened, where's this, why is this decision happening? And most times in this caution rule we see clear evidence of, all right, caution, the X car is ahead of this car, and we just never got that for the longest time. All right, we got to move on to our final topic. Now is all right. So obviously the Daytona 500 was on a Monday. Gave Tom an extra day in Daytona. And then they obviously moved the Xfinity race. Was originally before, then got moved to after. But this is back-to-back weeks.
Because we had a
NASCAR
new Juan Pablo incident.
Yeah, we also had a new Juan Pablo incident with jet drivers crashing into each other. But Tom, you were there. The track would have been dried by 11 o'clock on Monday, right?
It would have been close. It would have been close.
They didn't want to risk it.
Yeah, they didn't want to risk it. I mean, it wasn't great for anybody, right? From the drivers to the people covering it to the fans. I noticed at the end of the Xfinity race, we went out there to get quotes, and I was running on pit road. I looked up, there were maybe like 500 fans in the stands. It was like nobody there, because it was a really long day, right? And, I think after the Daytona 500 was kind of like a letdown in its sense. Even though the Xfinity race was good, they already saw the big race.
Yeah. I will say this, but this is back-to-back weeks. NASCAR has made a quick and swift change early in the day. They did it early Saturday by saying, we're not going to make it through the rest of the week. Let's just do the clash on Saturday. We will eat the price, eat the thing. Then I think they got a little lucky because Monday was President's Day. They moved the Daytona 500. It was before I woke up on Sunday. It had to be, like 9 a.m., 9:30 on Sunday. And I slept in on Sunday, folks. And they moved it instantly to Monday. And that was the right decision. They were never going to get that race in. But they had a really good crowd for doing this. NASCAR has, decided early this season in a trend to make scheduling decisions earlier, whereas they used to try to wait it out to get any sort of window possible to get any sort of laps in. What are your thoughts on that? I think this is a overall good thing for NASCAR because I think it benefits the fan more, who maybe can have more time to plan or an extra day. Whereas if you weren't planning that extra day, and you went, let's say, Sunday, went to the track, waited all day, the race didn't happen, well, you're going to have to go home because you don't have a day to find the necessary things you might need.
They got damn lucky. I'll say that right now. In promoting a racetrack and running a racetrack, you're damned if you do and damned if you don't. And 5 or 6 years ago at Myrtle Beach Speedway, we called a race and moved it to Sunday because Saturday was 100% chance of rain all day. So we moved it to Sunday. Saturday was 85 degrees and sunny with not a damn cloud in the sky. Sunday it freaking rained all day. So we ended up having to cancel the damn race. And Steve Zacharias, the manager who now runs Forest Motor Speedway, said, I'm never, ever doing it again. And he never has. So for right now, they've gotten away with it because the 2 times they've made the call, the weather actually played out. When they have one where they call it off and move it to a Monday and then Sunday's nice, and you got people that ended up not going or leaving because they couldn't stick around for Monday and they miss out on a race that could have been run if they'd have just been patient, it's going to bite them in the ass. So you're damned if you do and damned if you don't. I personally would like to see them try to make it in. I never, ever want to see them trying to do this halfway thing. They have filled us with that garbage for years that they won't throw a green unless they can get the whole race in, when every one of us knows that's a line of crap. But if they would legitimately only throw a green if they could get it all in, I say try and make it happen. Right now, they've gotten lucky.
Well, being down there, I will say this. There's absolutely no way they were going to get it in on Sunday. And the forecast was very clear for several days. It rained straight through hard all the way through the night. It was still raining Monday morning. Like where we were in Palm Coast. We were staying like half an hour north. I woke up and it wasn't raining. So I'm like, oh, we'll be all set. Started driving and we ended up getting there way too early because as we were driving like 5 minutes to the south, it was pouring and it poured all the way to the racetrack going south. So like this forecast held up. I think your point is great, Neff. I agree with what you're saying to a certain extent. But like I do think in this particular case, the forecast was pretty clear. And if you looked at the radar, there wasn't going to be an opening. So, that I applaud them for. And if you look at 2024 versus 2020, where, 2020, the race got postponed. You guys remember that? They ran couldn't have been more of a disaster. They ran 16 laps, the big wreck, and then all of a sudden race gets moved. Well, the crowd didn't come back that much on Monday. The crowd on this 500 for Monday was unbelievable. It was really good. And, don't get the wrong impression that just because there were 500 people at the end of the Xfinity race. I mean, the crowd was amazing for the 500. So
it also
I think that's a direct result of what NASCAR did.
Crowd was also amazing for the truck race. That crowd for that truck race, one of the biggest truck crowds I've ever seen.
Yeah.
Tom, it's all your fault. That's the rain. I just want to point that out. Thank you, Derek, for realizing it. Thank you.
Yeah. I'm kind of in the middle on the whole thing. The one thing I appreciate is it feels like they're being more honest with us than even 2020, 2021. Because I remember a couple races in those years, that's not even that long ago, where Fox would come on the air and would do everything they could to not show you rain, and would just act like everything was proceeding as normal. And then it would be I guess after 30 minutes or so, they'd be like, yeah,
we're under delay.
Yeah. They did that. I mean, there was one time where it was raining and Fox was trying to act like it wasn't raining, and then the drivers were saying it in their interviews, and finally they're like, yeah, it's actually raining here. So I'm glad they're actually being proactive and being honest with the fan and be like, look, we can't get it done today, instead of going live on the air and lying to everyone for half an hour just to get that chunk of viewers. So I don't know if there's someone new in charge at Fox over there or something, a different philosophy going on.
Artie's putting his foot down. That's what's going down. Artie is putting his foot down. Shout out to Artie.
Here's the thing, though. Doing TV for 20 years, here's the hard truth, right? I hate it just like everybody else, that people are lying when you come on the air, and it's well, there are a couple of raindrops out there when it's a raging downpour and trying to get it in. If I turn around and I go on the air and I'm supposed to be on the air for the next 3 hours because NASCAR is not calling it, and I go, well, it's raining like crazy, we're not going to get the race in. What are you going to do? You're going to turn the race off. Where are my ratings going to go? They're going to go, whoop. Where are those advertisers going to do? They're going to turn around and be like, there was an 0.3 for this and not a 3.0, and I paid for a 3.0. So you're costing yourself money. I mean, that's the hard truth. And so you have to go up there and you have to do this dance between trying to be as honest as possible and also know that you can't just lose your entire audience. You have to be on the air for the next 3 hours. So you have to give them some modicum of hope somewhere, even if you know that there's no hope. That's why the early calls are better, because then you don't get in that situation. Everybody's on the same page. We know what the forecast is, and at least the call's been made, so you don't have to do this TV dance, and then you come on when the weather is going to be good, or when it's just an hour delay, and then you're going to be fine.
Well, yeah. We'll see. This is 2 races. We'll see if they do, watch, them have a repeat of what Daytona went off.
Bites them, and then we'll see how it goes.
Yeah, when Austin Dillon won because the whole field wrecked because of rain. So we'll see. We'll see what happens. All right, that will do it for this episode of Happy Hour. Before we head on out of here, I will update the fan base on the front stretch draft. Unfortunately, Brian Nolan is in the lead. Splash Dalton at 152 points. Point system. We had our own Caleb Barnes, who I mentioned earlier, devise the point system and do the addition for us, because I wanted to be, unbiased. I didn't want to cheat. I wanted to be sure this was fair. But so it's 40 through first. Obviously, we mentioned that last week. +1 for a stage win. +3 for a race win. You win, you sweep it. You get +7 points. You make the playoffs, +10, and then so on for each round. Champ 4 is +15. And the champ is +20.
Hey, I think that the race winner should get a little more, because
no doubt. 3 points. Come on,
the guy I picked won the race, and I'm third in points.
Well, unfortunately, I'm sorry, Massie. Don't pick Joey Legat and 2 guys who got single digits. I just, but this was just 1 week, because our leader Mr. Brian Nolan thought this was a 1 week event, or like you'd repick. It's not. It's your season pick. So we'll see how he does the rest of the season. I am pulling up the rear at 115. Tom/guest. So technically, Neff, you're at 125, and for this podcast, Tom is filling the Dalton role, so he's at 152. So Tom, you're not team you didn't pick, and puts you in the lead. Congratulations. But gentlemen, we'll see Atlanta next
I don't
weekend.
have to make any kind of adjustment or anything.
Nah, but you are in second. Congratulations. We're gonna give whoever's our final guest. If they win, we're giving them the trophy. We're not giving it to Tom. That's what we've decided. So if you're the guest at the end of the season, you could get a trophy. Sorry, Tom. These are the rules that we all agree to. But that will do it for this episode of the Happy Hour podcast. I saved this comment. Anthony Damcott giving us a shout out here. I want to shout out Anthony. He's going to be the co-host of Bringing the Heat podcast with Brian Nolan this week. So Anthony, who was at Daytona with Tom, did a great job there. Actually, even got an exclusive interview with Noah Gregson. So check that out right here on this YouTube page, youtube.com/front stretch. You can also check it out on our Facebook page as well, where you're watching this video here. So shout out to Anthony. He'll be on with Brian tomorrow, or Wednesday when this comes out, or Thursday when this comes out. The podcast form comes out on Wednesday. My days get mixed up, but it'll be out on Thursday when we get Bringing the Heat with Brian Nolan out there as well. As Tom's mentioned, his article, Did You Notice, is coming out. Will be out tomorrow. Mike, you got anything coming out in this coming week, or anything you want to shout out before you get out of here?
First commentary is first week in March. I believe it's March 6th.
At Neff Short Track, if you want to hear more thoughts of the
grumpy call me
old
an idiot.
man.
I don't care. Whatever you want to do. Make fun of me. Talk about my bald head. I'm good.
The front stretch Santa Claus there to deliver. And Michael Massie at M_Massie22. He's got Fire on Fridays coming up on Friday. Are you heading to Atlanta?
No, I'm going to Vegas. Next week. Yeah, I'm going to Vegas next week.
All right.
The faux super speedway.
The faux super speedway. Well, that will do it for this episode of Happy Hour. Thanks to everyone who listened. Make sure you share this with your friends. Subscribe, like, and subscribe wherever you get the podcast. Like and subscribe to our YouTube page. Thank you so much for listening to the episode of Happy Hour.